Hello, welcome back to the channel. So this week I just wanted to do a bit of an update around what it's been like living with a EV for the last 18 months. We've got an Audi e-tron 55 Quattro, 22 reg. It's a great little car, you know, real fast thing when you need it to be. Really responsive, put your foot down, takes off straight away. You know, it's great to live with. I think considering it's our first EV, I've been really impressed with it. I know there's a lot of skeptics around EVs at the moment. People aren't quite sure as to whether they should make the jump into it, but I think at some point we're all going to be pushed in that direction. I think for us it's not really worth talking about the environmental impacts of EVs at the moment. That's a discussion for another day. And I know there's lots of debate around whether, you know, the emissions that you save have an impact against the battery life and disposal of the battery and all that jazz, but for me at the moment I think financially makes sense. There were some good deals on the cars at the time when I was able to get this one, so it was a real no-brainer from my perspective. That's why we got this car. So what's it been like living with a electric car for the last 18 months? Car's great fun to drive. Those familiar with electric cars will know that, you know, you put your foot down, takes off, there's immediate torque, the power is unbelievable. Not just in this car, I mean, don't get me wrong, this is an Audi and it's you know, got a big battery and lots of power for it, but even on some of the smaller ones, you know, the immediate power that you get to the wheels, you can really feel the difference for it. So for me, I'm, you know, a great advocate of electric cars. I think they're really nice to drive, really responsive. You know, there's some great benefits to them, but there are also some disadvantages as well. So you just need to be conscious that it's not for everybody. Some people do like them, some people don't. But I think for me, at the moment, great to have. So there's some debate around EVs, isn't there, at the moment, in terms of operating costs. You know, don't get me wrong, the original outset for the cars can be quite expensive. So you've just got to weigh up whether those costs, you know, are justifiable when it comes to the reduced operating costs. I think with the price of gas electric at the moment, doesn't always make sense. I know when we go out now and, you know, we charge up when we're out of the home and we're not at home anymore, we've not got an electric charger at home. If we're out and about, you can pay up to 85p kilowatt hour, which is quite expensive, I think, from anyone's book. But at home, depending on what sort of tariff you're on, you can be looking at 45p a kilowatt hour. So you just got to weigh it up and do your own calculations based on what rates you're paying and that sort of thing. So I think for me, it's, you know, every individual's a bit different, and you've just got to do your calculations. There are some EV calculators. I'll put the, you know, link in the description down below in terms of where you can find those calculators and sort of information you need to put in them. But, you know, do your homework, have a look at it. Don't be put off by what other people are saying, because I know there's a lot of skeptics around EVs at the moment, but I think it's worth just doing your research and finding out what sort of car you want and what it's worth, you know, whether it's worth doing it from your perspective in terms of the sort of mileage you do and the mileage that you'll be allowed on the car. So from our point of view, it does make sense. You know, we don't do massive miles, we're not always out on the road, a lot of driving around town and that sort of thing, so it does make sense from that point of view. I think if we were doing big miles, you know, I think we'd have to consider it a little bit more. It's not always that practical. You've got to weigh up time to be spent plugging in the car and factor that into your journey. It's not always as straightforward as you think. So one of the other elements you need to consider is, you know, the actual significant loss that you'll find in the depreciation in the value of your car, the resale value. Take this car as an example. So this car's £76,000 brand new, 2 to 3 years old. You can pick up the same car, similar mileage, £26,000. So you're talking a £50,000 depreciation in value in the space of 2 to 3 years. That is a significant drop in anybody's you know, book around the financial value of a car. And I think that it's not just with this car, it's all EVs at the moment. You know, if you look at any of them, no matter what they are, they've been out for a couple of years, they do absolutely tank in value, and that's something you just need to consider. You know, would you buy one? I'm not sure. Leasing one does make sense, so have a look at that if if that's of your interest to you. But I definitely think buying one at the moment, if it's your own money, just have a careful think about it, because they're developing all the time. There's lots of changes happening with the cars, new mods coming out all the time, and you also need to think about the range as well. I think one of the things that's changing with cars at the moment is around, you could have 230 miles in this car. The newer version of this that's only just come out in 2023 is 110 miles more range. That's a significant increase in the range of any car. So it's just something you need to have a bit of a think about and consider. It's not always that straightforward, but I think for me it's just, have a look at the different cars that you're interested in and, see what works for you. From my perspective, the range isn't a massive issue other than when we go away on holiday with the boys and the dog, thinking about those sort of things. But, we have a home charger that we can plug it into every night when we need to. So, gone are the days when we used to have to worry about the big queues around petrol stations when there was fuel shortages and that sort of thing. That's just not going to happen anymore. So there are those hidden benefits that you need to think about. I think one of the things I have noticed over the last 18 months, when we first got this car, there was a massive criticism around the infrastructure for EVs, just charging out and about. And I must admit, in the UK, it's not really improved that much, but it has improved significantly over the last 18 months. I have noticed a significant improvement, even just when you're going on, holidays and you're traveling. A couple of months ago, we went down to Cornwall. There's a few videos in the few videos on the channel if you want to check those out. But we went down to Cornwall, and I must say I didn't really stress about the charging, this range anxiety, because I knew there were lots of chargers dotted around, and there's multiple different apps. I put a screenshot of my phone in terms of all the different apps that I use to look for chargers, but I think it has improved significantly. If we'd have done the same journey last year, maybe 12, 13, 14 months ago, I think we'd have struggled. We did go to Wales about 12 months ago, and I got home and I had about a range of about 4 miles left, because we just struggled to find a charger when we were out and about. And I think this is something you just need to be conscious of. EVs aren't for people who just get up and go. You do have to plan your journey and think about where you're going and whether there's chargers around and available and that sort of thing. So it's not for everyone, but as I said, it's been great. I think some of the main benefits for me have been the drive. It's an absolutely smooth, quiet, effortless drive. They are lovely to drive, and it's not for everyone. Some people like that combustion engine, the noise of the car, the roar of the engine, the rumble. But it is pretty much like if anyone remembers the Jetsons back in the day, it's just that quiet noise of whoo, and off you go. So it's a great little car. I love it. I think from our perspective at the moment, when we're tootling around, EVs are great. Doing the school run, going to the shops, just tootling around locally, it's great. We've got a charger at home. There's no issues there. Ideal. I think the only area where we've sort of struggled really with the electric car is where we've been going to, places like Wales. We've been on long journeys, and you're looking on your maps to see where there's chargers. You turn up and it's either broken, or there's someone on there or charging and left the car, or there's a non-electric car, and it's just the annoying little things like that that do your head in. And that's because there's not enough chargers in the structure at the moment. The infrastructure in this country is still not quite there. So I think once that's improving, and as I said earlier, we have seen an improvement over the last 18 months at least, and it's starting to develop more and more. But I think once that improves, the arguments around not having the infrastructure there will go. So I think for me, a lot of people with electric cars are still early adopters of the technology, and we just need to embrace it, but also look at the limitations of it at the moment too. For me, I think the best of both worlds is probably to have a plug-in hybrid that you can do 30 miles locally on, use it locally at home, and then when you go away, you've still got your combustion engine to rely on. But don't get me wrong, you know, government plans, that won't last forever. We know in the future we're not going to be able to do that. Everything's going to be going electric or some other, you know, model that'll be available by then, hopefully. But I think for me, I've been really impressed with it. Would I get another electric car? Yeah, I think I probably would. But I think I'd also like to look at options in terms of having some combustion alternative to rely on as well at the same time. So I think moving forward, it's just whatever works with you at the moment. And you know, a lot of people are switching over to electric because, you know, there's lots of tax incentives around it. Governments are offering lots of things for people to, you know, embrace the new ways of traveling and that sort of thing, and that's great. But I think at the moment, you know, a lot of people are sat on the fence around electric vehicles. You know, one of the things you've got to consider is when you're charging your car, you know, if you've got this pod point charger like we've got at home, you know, don't get me wrong, we've had a few issues with it, which I've put in previous videos around the chargers, and issues we've had where we've had to have the drive dug up to accommodate a new power supply and that sort of thing to the property. But just on a more practical sense, from a day-to-day basis, you know, you've got these chargers trailing across your drive. If you can have one, not everyone can have one, you know, you've got some people who live in terrace houses, can't have chargers there. So you can only really have them from a practical sense if you've got a drive on your property. And, you know, that's something to take into account as well. As well as, you know, 50% of the time in this country, the weather's rubbish. So you've got this cable trailing across your drive that then you've got to wrap up. And if it's been raining and the, you know, weather's been really bad, that can get quite messy. And, you know, sometimes it can be a bit of a pain. So that's just something to take into consideration from a more practical perspective. As well as that, you know, you got to think about when you're out and about and you need to charge your car. You pull up at a petrol station, they're well undercover, and there's lots of you know, covers for the petrol pumps, and you don't often get wet and, you know, that sort of thing. But you have a look at all the electric chargers. I think I've probably seen one since I've been driving around an electric car that's got cover over it. Most electric chargers are out in the open. There's no covers over them, no shelter. So, you know, if you're charging your electric car and it's raining, just be prepared to get wet. You don't find that at a petrol pump, but it's just something to consider. You know, we went on a journey recently, we were down in Cornwall, and the weather was really bad, but if you got to charge, you got to charge, and you've got to get out and you got to get wet. And, you know, it's not always a 5-minute job like it is when you're with in a petrol pump. You know, sometimes you can be faffing around trying to get the charger to turn on and engage with the vehicle, and, you know, messing around with apps and payments and those sort of things. And this is what it's like. It's not always that straightforward. And if it's lashing it down, which on some occasions it has been, you've just got to be prepared to get wet. Well, that's life. I think the best part for me really around electric cars is just the responsiveness. You know, how nice it is just to put your foot down and have that immediate power to the wheels, and, you know, the torque, and just being able to go straight away. It's just like driving a go-kart, really. And this is what driving should really be about, you know, just enjoying it and putting your foot down and having that immediate power. But at the same time, it's not for everybody. Not everyone likes that, but yeah, I do at the moment. So that's where we're up to. You know, I think if you're plugging your car in every night and you're charging it every night that you've got it, that's, you know, that's fine. I think you just need to be conscious that, be aware of what journeys you're doing the next day, plan things. You know, if it's a car that's used by multiple people, just make sure you've got enough range for what the day is ahead. But otherwise, you're going to find yourself rushing around in the morning to find a charger to plug it into, and a fast one at that as well. So all I'd say is, electric cars, you just need to plan ahead and think about what your journeys are and what you're doing the next day, and you know, if you've got enough range to get you to where you need to be. It's as simple as that, really. I think what we're going to see over the next, you know, 18 months plus, as, you know, more and more electric cars come available, the technology is improving significantly, the ranges are getting so much better, that some of these earlier EVs, the price of them is just going to drop significantly because people just aren't going to want them. You know, it's I think at the moment there's just a surplus of electric cars that really people are a little bit dubious about buying and people don't want. So I think it's only a positive because they're just going to get cheaper and cheaper. You know, if you look at some of the cars at the moment, you know, this is 2023. If you look at some of the cars that are out in 2019, 2020 even, you know, the price of them is reduced by 50%, if not more, you know. And I think electric cars the resale value of those drop even more than, you know, your traditional cars. So it's just something to keep out, you know, an eye on. I think there's opportunity to buy some really, really nice, cheap second-hand cars that are electric in the future. The only thing you just need to be conscious of is, you know, you hear some horror stories about people buying electric cars and, you know, no longer under warranty and that sort of thing. And if they need another battery, the batteries are not cheap. You know, I've heard some people banding quotes around for some Tesla batteries that are like 20 grand for a new battery. Who's got that sort of money lying around to fix a car? It's just not realistic, is it? So, you know, these are just the things we need to consider. You know, are electric cars for a second-hand market? Probably not, but there will be some people who will want to buy them, and there will be the demand in the future. So keep an eye out. Let's see how things go. It'll be interesting anyway. I think if you're looking for space as well, I mean, if you take this car as an example, it's got a massive boot. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is the estate version, but it's also got a front boot as well, which a lot of electric cars have because there's no engine. So, you know, if storage space in your car is, you know, sometimes an issue, electric cars might be the answer. You know, there's lots of space, lots of storage around the car. There's you know, it's the front, or, you know, the front trunk as some people call it. You know, they've got those in a lot of the electric cars, and the boot's massive, and there's often under storage in the boot as well. So storage is always you know, a good selling point for electric cars. So in my next video, I'm going to do a bit of a walk around of the Audi e-tron that we've had for the last 18 months. Give you a little bit of an overview about what it's been like living with it. You know, some of the specifications and the tech that's in the e-tron, and just give you, you know, a general walk around. It is a nice car, and as I said earlier in the video, you know, some of them are coming up fairly cheapish at the moment. You know, as I said, some of them are dropping about 50 grand. So you can pick up a second-hand one that's in a fairly decent condition, low mileage. You know, a lot of the EVs are at the moment, low mileage, and, you know, it could be 50 grand less than it was 2 years ago when it was brand new. So there are some good deals to be had at the moment around some of these cars, so it's worth keeping an eye out if it's something you're interested in. But again, as I said previously, just be wary, because once these vehicles are out of warranty, you just do need to think about the implications for that on the battery. But it's no different to replacing an engine. You know, if an engine goes on a car, you'd only have the same issue, but I think the batteries can just be a little bit more expensive than your traditional combustion engine. So something to think about with the electric cars. As I said previously, you know, you get that immediate torque and power to the wheels. It's not like your combustion engines where you have to build up through your gears and you know, your power increases. As soon as you put your foot down, there's that immediate acceleration in your power, and it can be quite shocking when you first do it, but after a while it's you know, a really enjoyable drive, and you will notice the difference when you're in an electric car compared to your traditional combustion cars. But it's really the way things are going in the future, so check them out. You know, they're great, and if it's something you fancy, take one for a test drive.